So what I thought I'd do today is to focus on the areas where you can develop a practice that you can use during your day. BIFI is an acronym that I've created. It's 4 things basically. BIFI is boredom, impatience, frustration and irritation. Recognize any of that? Boredom, impatience, frustration and irritation. So what boredom is that the present moment is unsatisfactory. Impatience is that you want the unsatisfactory present moment to become a satisfactory present moment and you want it now. Frustration, someone's trying to stop you. Someone's trying to stop you from changing the unsatisfactory present moment into a satisfactory present moment. Like, you know, I want to get to somewhere on time and somebody gets in front of me. An irritation is the present moment would be satisfactory if it wasn't for someone making it unsatisfactory. Yeah. So for example, let's say you're in a coach and then the person next to you gets their headphones that don't work particularly well out and start listening to some mindless music that you hate. What you've got is you've got your satisfactory present moment, and people often refer to this as a bubble, and they say, I'm happy in my bubble, and then something, usually a sound or some sort of behaviour, intervenes in the satisfactoriness of your present moment. So what they're doing is bursting your bubble. Yeah? And so that is what it's like living in a city of 8 million people. And you think to yourself, it's hell. I can't remember which philosopher or author it was who said hell is other people. And I must admit, going back in the day, one of the reasons I memorised that is because I read that and I thought, yeah, I can sign up to that. Hell is other people. You know, that was me. And so what I've learned, basically, no, it isn't. It's hell is my response to other people if I can't regulate my response. So there's a whole bundle of ways that we can use the meditation practices to defeat BIFI, or actually more correctly, we can use the meditation practices to neutralize it. Okay, so boredom is a trigger to meditate. Yeah. It's as simple as that. So the example I use, back in the day when I commuted all the time, you'd have to queue up. So all the time that I'd be in the queue, I would be meditating. So that's whether I was late or not. And the meditation I would do is called a bubble meditation. And I'd go into Bromley South, I'd queue up, and I would do the bubble meditation. And there's lots of different bubble meditations. But with this one, what you're doing is you're noticing your breath, and then when a thought arises, you imagine that you're under magical water that enables you to breathe, and you breathe out, and the thought rises up like the air if you were underwater and you swam down and you breathe out. You get these kind of swirly bubbles, and they float up to the imaginary surface of the imaginary water, which is about 6 foot above you, and pop. And so one of the things I noticed after a while was how relaxed I was compared to the other people queuing up, because people hate queuing up. And now what it is, it's a trigger for most people to look at their mobile phone. And so the way out of that is on your lock screen. If you find yourself going to your mobile phone because of BIFI, because of boredom, for example, you get an image on your lock screen and you put meditate on it. So what happens is, there you are, you go into your mobile phone, because you've basically programmed yourself to do that. I've got some time to myself, so what do? I go to my mobile phone, and I'll pick my emails up, God help us, read Facebook, whatever it happens to be. And instead you've got this message which says meditate. Yeah? So that's one way. And then what you do after a while, you learn to convert the trigger of being bored from a trigger to check your mobile phone, which everybody else is doing, and instead you'll meditate. I quite understand how you could struggle to meditate in a queue to start off with. And when we start meditating, we need silence and need to be at home. And that's where things like Headspace and SoundCloud and my guided meditations on SoundCloud come in, or anybody else's guided meditations that you want to listen to. So there you are, you're in your queue, or you're stuck on a train and you're bored, or you're commuting and you're bored, or you've got some downtime and you're bored. You know, instead of doing Tetris or Facebook or whatever it happens to be, you open your mobile, it says meditate. So what I'll do is I'm going to teach you the bubble meditation. So everybody's on a spectrum of the ability to visualize. But what everybody can do, even if they can't visualize, they can imagine the sense of being in a particular environment. So for example, even if you can't visualize, I can say, imagine how you'd feel sitting on a beach in the tropics, waving palm trees, sand underneath you, waves crashing in the distance. And we can all do that. So if you can't visualize, then you imagine the sense of the experience. And what I'll do is I'll teach this from a not specifically very visual perspective, so that non-visual guys won't find it frustrating, because we don't want to replace boredom with frustration that we can't visualize. So if you want to get yourselves comfortable, I'll teach you the bubble meditation. So this is a bit like the following the breath meditation. And to start that off, if we're sitting, we want to be sitting in a relaxed and open posture. So if you're in a chair, feet on the ground. If you meditate cross-legged, that's fine. If you are comfortable with it, make your back as straight as is comfortable. So it mustn't be a kind of rigorous endurance practice of sitting in a particular position. It's actually about learning to be balanced and relaxed wherever you are. So whether you're sitting in your office seat, or you're sitting in a meeting, or you're sitting in your seat at home, or in a cafe, or having dinner, or anything like that, it's a practice to help you to always find that relaxed, balanced, open posture. So that's back as straight as is comfortable. Having a straight spine, the best way to do it is to place your elbows by your side and stick your belly out. So when you're teaching kids to meditate, you tell them to sit like a frog. And that's the best way to have a relaxed and open posture. Elbows by the side and stick your belly out, which is obviously the opposite of our cultural desire to all have six packs. And then if you tip your head back, and with the elbows at the side, it's easier to find the point of equilibrium, which is the point where your skull is balanced on top of your spine. And if you're standing, so let's say you're standing in a queue, then it's the same thing actually. The natural posture is actually for us to stick our bums out a bit. So if you look at primitive people, the way they stand, their back is in a bit of a J shape. And with the knees slightly bent and elbows at the side and your chin up and your skull balanced, then you're in a natural, open, relaxed posture when you're standing as well. And then, you know, there you are and you're in the queue. You might be in one of those snake queues in Victoria, for example. Everybody else is checking their mobile phone and you're noticing your breath. So this is the same as following the breath. So we're aware of the breath. And all the breath is a reality check for the present moment. It's just like an anchor, a place that we are aware of that helps us notice that we're here, we're present, and our mind hasn't wandered. And then when thoughts arise, and you know, I talk about thoughts arising for between 10 and 20% of the population, and quite possibly more. Thoughts are a constant train of thoughts, one after the other, one after the other. For some other people, they can meditate, and on a good day your mind's quite quiet. But then a thought will arise in that experience. So if you've got a constant train of thought, then what you're doing is when you notice a thought, so you bring your attention to the breath, and whatever thought it is, could be the inner voice, could be an image, could be a memory, could be a thing to do, a task, a problem, something pops into your awareness. All you do is you breathe in, cool, cleansing in breath. While that happens, the mind becomes silent, and when you breathe out through the nostrils, what you do is you imagine that the thought is a bubble and that it's floating up to the surface of the imaginary magical water that you can breathe in, which is about 6 feet above you. And when it hits that, it pops. So what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to be aware of the sensation of breathing out and noticing that there's the bubble floating up to the top, popping. And then you bring yourself back to the breath again, just noticing the breath. Another thought arises, cool in breath, just punctuates the thought so it stops rattling away. Breathe out again through the nostrils and allow yourself to be aware of the sense of the bubble floating up to the top of the water and popping, and you can imagine the sound if you can, and repeat. So that's the bubble meditation. If you're a highly visual person, you can imagine, of course, that you're sitting at the bottom of a beautiful lagoon with light dappling on the sandy floor while you're doing this. But if you're not a visual person, you're getting involved in the sense of the air coming out the nostrils, breathing out the thought along with the air, and it floating up, popping and returning and repeating. So just practice this for the next few minutes. It's called the bubble meditation. At this point, I suggest you stop the playback, meditate for a while, as long as you're comfortable meditating. Ideally go for something like 15 minutes or so, and then when you're ready, press start. Okay, so checking in with the body, noticing if your body is balanced, if it's relaxed. If it's not relaxed, then just let whatever tension there is out of your shoulders. Relax back down into your seats, and then gently return your attention to the room.